So, as I said at the beginning of the show, this is the second time that Andrew Duff has joined us. He is a New York based actor. He was raised in Hillsborough, New Jersey, where he pursued short films and skits with his friends as a child and a teen. Then later, while attending Benetton College, he wrote a one-man show titled Where Are We Now?, which explored his diagnosis of autism and the concept of what it means to, quote, get better. This work caught the attention of the Tectonic Theater Project, and he spent the next few years working with them on the off-Broadway show Uncommon Sense, which I'm devastated that I did not get to see. Since then, he has made the jump to TV and film, recurring on Little Voice on Apple TV, and As We See It on Amazon Studios. Andrew was also featured in the December 2020 BuzzFeed article, 5 autistic actors you should be watching now, listing him along with the names of Mickey Rowe, Alex Plank, Kayla Cromer, and our dear Kobe Bird. He is represented, in case you want to know, by Kazarian, Measures, Ruskin, and Associates, and we are thrilled to have him back with us after all these years. Andrew, are you there?
I am, Shannon. Thank you so much for having me back. I think the first time we did this, what, 2014, 2015, something like that?
Yeah, it was a long time ago. And I was saying at the start of the show that you were such an inspiration to me then because I now, Andrew, my son is now 18 years old and a college student, but he wasn't then. And when
Right.
you came on the show then, you were just like a flashlight in the woods for me because I saw what you were doing and I was like, okay, we want to get to where Andrew is, and it just showed me everything that was possible. So I can't leave that out. You've been an inspiration to me. I've been following you whenever I can, the things, and when I saw that you were going to be on As We See It, I just about lost my mind. And then I just loved you on this show, Andrew.
Thank you
I
so much. I'm so glad
I'm
you liked it.
I'm gonna cry. I just thought that Douglas was everything that I needed. Do you know what I mean? Like I just felt like you were. I think it's the best written character on the show, and I felt like because I was sort of watching, and everybody has a different voice there, and I was
Mhm.
looking for where Jason Kadam's voice was and where his thesis was, if you will, and I feel like it was you. Did you ever feel that?
It's funny because Douglas as a recurring character, you only sort of get little glimpses at him as opposed to the characters of Violet, Jack, and Harrison. And because you only get these flashes, I think you only get a glimpse into Douglas, and a lot of Douglas's character is really based on this idea that because a big thing that a lot of the characters are pursuing in this is this need to be normal, is this need to transcend their diagnosis or themselves in some way, shape, or form. Douglas, I don't know if he has necessarily the same viewpoint. I think he really does feel content with who he is and sort of what he's about. Of course, he has his moments of self doubt and his moments of, oh, maybe I should be this way in order to accomplish something. But Douglas, I think in a lot of ways is even braver than me. He really says what he's thinking all the time, and he just kind of goes for it. And I think he really takes chances, and he really does. He's nervous, but he does believe in himself in a way that I think not a lot of people get the opportunity to be. So playing Douglas was just great.
I'll bet. I want to know everything about it, but I just have to say that you were fantastic in it. And if people have not seen this, you need to go and watch it right now on Amazon. And I said at the beginning, I did a review on this, and I said, don't you dare just watch the first episode. You have to watch until at least the third episode because Douglas doesn't appear until the third episode. And I guarantee you, once you're in the third episode, you're not going to be able to stop it until you're done with the whole thing. And really, that last episode is killer.
The
Absolutely killer.
the last episode is just really, I don't want to spoil
Right.
anything about it, but some honestly, the acting throughout the show is phenomenal all the way through. Sue Ann Pian, Albert Rattecki, Rick Glassman, Sosie Bacon, Chris Pank, Lou, everyone just brings it.
Yeah.
And but the last episode in particular, everyone's firing on all cylinders. It's really a
Yeah.
great show. I definitely, you know, I should recommend you watch it, but I sincerely, really do recommend that you watch it, especially if you are involved in this community
Yeah.
that we have here in some way. I think you'll really connect to at least one of the characters, if not all of them.
So talk to us a little bit about the process of when did you first hear about this show? When did you audition? How'd you get the role? What was it like being on set? Because this show is groundbreaking in that there are multiple characters on the spectrum, and from the beginning, the directive, I believe, was that they were going to cast it authentically.
Mhm.
But there were also people on the crew set that were actually autistic as well. So tell us everything.
Right. So we'll just start from the top. So Jason Kadam's really based this on an Israeli format. I believe that one was called On the Spectrum. And I apologize if I'm wrong on that, but I know
No, I
that
think you're right.
he was basing it on that. And the pilot, I believe, was actually filmed right before the pandemic hit.
Mm,
So the pilot was filmed, and they got Sue Ann, Rick, and Albert on there, and they filmed the pilot. And then I think it just had to stop
yeah.
because of quarantine and everything like that. So during that time, I had had a really lovely time on Little Voice. I was coming off of that, also in quarantine, and I was, as I am now, I was represented by KMR talent, Gail and Katie in particular. And this past, not 2021 February, I was actually walking home from getting my first vaccine shot, and I got a call from my agent saying, "Hey, you remember that taped audition you did about a week or two back?" Because I sent in the taped audition for the character of Douglas, because they had restarted filming,
Yeah.
and I was on the way home from the shot, and they said, "Hey, they really like you. Can you be? Can you fly out?" I said, "Okay, sure." When, thinking it'd be 2 weeks to a month, they said Thursday, and it was Tuesday. So I said, "Okay, I gotta back up and get out there." So it was a whirlwind of stuff, hop, and then especially like between that and COVID, getting on an
Yeah.
airplane, going through the whole process, quarantining in the hotel, which, by the way, they took COVID measures extremely seriously, getting tested all the
Good.
time, and it actually made me feel even safer than I was already. Um, so I get there, I finally get on set after quarantining in the hotel for a little bit, and I was so nervous because I had worked in Little Voice in New York, but I literally took a bus from my apartment straight to the studio. I knew exactly where I was, so I think there was a sense of comfort with that situation. But this was a whole new bag of worms to me. And my first scene was with Sue Ann and Sosie Bacon, and they were just amazing and outstanding and super supportive. And I remember Rick Glassman was there, and he was supportive. And we after my first, I think, one or two takes of initial nervousness, we really got it rolling, and the set life was just really great. The entire vibe, everyone was super warm, was super accommodating, and the fact that not only were the main characters that are defined as on the spectrum actually played by individuals on the spectrum, but and then, as you said, we have the crew, we have
Mhm.
people behind the scenes working on it, we have consultants. There are actually some characters in the show that are defined as neurotypical, but they're played by a neurodiverse cast. So there was like, it's a little bit of a fun game to see if you could catch who are playing these roles, but they really made authenticity the name of the game, not just in front of the camera, but behind it. And I actually think that's sort of the sort of the magic touch, sort of the next step that our community needs to take, is not just representation in front of the camera, but representation behind it, whether it's um, crew, whether it's producing, whether it's writing, whether it's directing, because I think that's really the big next step in major change. And as we see it, has taken a massive step forward in that regard.
Yeah, I can't agree enough. Now, some people are going to be watching this and they're going to look at you, Andrew, and they're going to go, you know. I mean, they're gonna go, oh my gosh, we don't see autism. I'm sure
Hmm.
that you've been plagued with this throughout your life. That it's like you get to identify however you identify, and then people go, oh, I don't get it. But I want to talk with you about what it's like when you're you've been cast many times as individuals on the spectrum, and often their level of functioning, their understanding of the world, their perception of the world is different than yours. Might
Hmm.
be for any actor playing any role, right? But what is that like for you? Watching you play Douglas, because Douglas is different from you,
Hmm.
and his autism is different than how that presents in you. But then I also got you have a short film that's out right now. Is it Dig?
It is Dig, yeah, and actually, Dig was filmed before Little Voice and As We See It. That was filmed back in 2019. That was when Uncommon Sense first wrapped,
Wow.
and I had just left Autism Speaks to pursue acting more full time, and so that was a short film that John O'Seneth, the director, reached out to me to do, and that was a really interesting character of Russell because Russell is pretty severely affected, needs a lot of support, and that's the big crux of the story is how much support he needs. But he was based on two individuals. John O'Seneff got the inspiration from two real individuals on the spectrum. So we went over these individuals. I studied them. I sort of looked at their mannerisms and how they operated, and then I melded them. With Douglas, I took Douglas as being like nervous but brave. Like he doesn't want to retreat. He wants to really get over it. And I tried to take a little bit of myself and my nerves and the stuff that is inherent within my place on the spectrum, and then try to tweak it ever so slightly to get to Douglas levels. And that's sort of the magical thing about playing characters on the spectrum is I think people with perspective, they might think there's only one or two or three ways to do it, but like any character in any medium, there are so many ways to approach it. They could be very stim heavy, very physical. They could be nonverbal. They could have facial tics, or they could have nothing. They could be completely masking, for lack of a better term. And that's also a big topic in As We See It as well, which was lovely to see the topic of masking and the idea of passing as normal. And so I try to approach every character with not necessarily where they are on the spectrum, but what physicality do they have? What vernacular do they have? How do they talk? Is there anything triggering? And I try to find the stimulus that really affects them and then maneuver from there.
Is it a little frustrating though, having to deal with the fact that sometimes people just don't understand that you're a professional, that you're an
Oh,
actor, and that you're playing a role, and then it's like they only tend to understand either that, or they understand authentic representation, but they have a hard time putting them together. Does that make
yeah,
sense?
it does. And it's interesting because I've encountered this basically since Uncommon Sense,
Mhm.
and this has been something that I've actually become really fascinated by. Is this an anecdote to get to make the point clearer? In Uncommon Sense, we had four clearly defined individuals on the spectrum, arguably five or six, depending on if you look at the story and how you interpret it, and at all different places. One per character, my character Moose, was nonverbal and self-injurious. Another character used a speaking pad. Another character would be defined as the now defunct Aspergian sort of style, were just very quirky, and so all over the map in terms of the spectrum. And there would still be people that came to the show and still felt like maybe they weren't represented, whether they were a self advocate or a parent, maybe, and they could see elements of it, but they didn't feel like it really captured their experience. And that was interesting because when you have so many characters on the spectrum and you still and people still don't feel um like they got it, you start to wonder, is that something in the writing or is that something inherent in how autism is perceived? And
Mhm.
I, after doing multiple characters and still encountering um, this feedback, I think a huge part of it is this perspective that people, because autism is so close to them, or because of how it's portrayed in media, it becomes narrow and it becomes tough to get wrap your head around how broad the spectrum is. And I think that's
Yeah.
always going to be a big issue in terms of representation. As many characters as you could put on there, there's going to be people that maybe to them it feels false or maybe it feels wrong, not because it inherently is, but it doesn't resonate with their personal
Yeah.
experiences. And yeah, there was a
Mhm.
bit of frustration at first, but now I think it's more of a drive to just keep trying new characters and keep changing up the formula as much as we can. I don't know if it's a goal we're ever going to hit. It might
Yeah.
be that we have to work on the perception of autism first before that ever changes. But I think it's just a fascinating phenomenon almost that you could have all these characters and still people feel unrepresented. It's just a testament to how broad the spectrum actually is.
I think that's a great answer. And I'm glad that you brought up that there were several times I thoroughly enjoyed, and as we see it, where we got to see, because many people had been on the show, Lillian, we got to see her play
Yeah.
character that was not on the spectrum, that was one of the people working in the office, and to see that happen. I hope that as an actor that you are getting opportunities to play the full breadth of people on the spectrum, off the spectrum. Do you feel like it's a little bit harder for people to recognize you in that way?
I yes and no. Again, I think in my, because again, we discussed this earlier, but I tend to just inherently be viewed as passing. I'll be out at a social event and mention that I'm on the spectrum, and people usually, I would say 80% of the time, it's like, oh, I never would have guessed that, or you're lying, or that sort of thing, and you just sort of get used to it a little bit. And I think the people that really know me or have spent time with me can sort of clock and be like, oh yeah, I can see it now. It's one of those, the more exposure you have to the person, you sort of figure it out. But with that and auditioning, normally people will just see a headshot or a voice reel or a video reel, and then I go in and do the audition. So hopefully and generally it doesn't become a topic of conversation unless the project is specifically about the spectrum, which admittedly a lot of the work that I go out for is nowadays. Or if I end up getting the role and certain accommodations might need to be met, not even because I don't really need supports in a certain way, just more of a heads up of, hey, I might ask extra questions just to orient myself, or um, I might need this or that, but nothing particularly major. Um, yeah, so it becomes. I don't think it's necessarily pulled me back. That being said, because I am outspoken and I have, um, put myself out as a self advocate, sometimes that does translate to people pigeonholing
Yeah.
an actor into that role, and that's sort of the catch 22 where I want to be the self advocate and I want to own it, but sometimes by virtue of doing that, it puts you into a typecast immediately. Not that I actually think it's a great typecast to be in, because as we
Yeah.
discussed, there's so much variety. But
Yeah.
yeah, there's always that feeling of wanting to break free and try new stuff, and I think that's just acting in general. All my actor friends tend to, you know, be drawn or be pulled into certain types of characters, and I think every actor wants to sink their teeth into as many roles as possible. So that's just a kind of a human actor experience. I don't know if it's necessarily even just for the autism community.
There you go. I'm so glad to have you back on the show, because there was something that we talked about the last time that you were here all those years ago that has just really stuck with me.
Mhm.
That when you were doing your one man show, which just took my breath away. Again, it was called "Where Are We Now?" And my recollection all these years later, because I got to see a video of it, and there's Oh my gosh, there was one scene that you did where it's just you, just two folding chairs, but you play yourself as a child,
Hmm.
yourself in the present, your mom and your dad in the car. Oh, Andrew, it has stayed with me all these years later. Listening to you as a child, listening to the conversation of your parents talking about your diagnosis and what was going to happen and what was life going to be like for you. I could just put my head down right now and cry. But it really is some beautiful work. You really are someone who has, as an artist, has a point of view that is just shattering to me. And one of the topics that you talked about in the show was that there was, and I don't want to paraphrase, so you correct me if I get this wrong, but but you, there were times that you were questioning that with all the help that was given to you, that you were brought from a place where you were in an insular world by yourself into an awareness of the world, and that everybody sort of celebrated that because here you are, this amazing who you are, but that there, when you questioned whether it would have been kinder to have left you in that capsule where you didn't have to worry about the world. Tell
Mm.
me that, this is my recollection of it, but you tell me what you were saying then, and then help me. Where are you now as an adult who has been through this process? What are your thoughts on this now?
Yeah, where are we now? Pretty apropos.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so you pretty much nailed it right on the head. And I forget if I mentioned this on the last time I was here, but sort of the influence for that statement, which ended up becoming sort of the theme of the show, was I was actually the prior year I had taken a literature and philosophy on innocence course. And this idea of what innocence, there's so many definitions of innocence, and one of those is um born kind of both born as you are, but also not knowledge and gaining knowledge of the world is often viewed as a loss of innocence to a degree, um, which is interesting because growth is always encouraged, but at the same time, uh, at the expense of innocence. And I always found it just a fascinating topic in the philosophy of innocence to be a very fascinating subject. And when I put it into the context of autism, it became this story or this thought process of would I have been more innocent and then by some schools of thought better off without gaining knowledge of the world or not being put into positions and scenarios that I probably that if I had not reached the point now I might not have been put in. One of the clarifying things over the past uh, better part of a decade that I've learned both in my time working with the autism community and pursuing these roles and just introspection on my own part is I don't know if there's no way to tell. I definitely think the supports and the schooling and the intervention helped to a degree. Where I would have ended up with or without, I couldn't really speak for sure, and I think that's a big part of the equation. Is I don't know if there's a way to guarantee anything. I think you simply have to do the best you can and then see where it ends up. So that was a big thing that I came to terms with and figured out that maybe to a degree this was how it's supposed to be. Maybe that's what it was, or maybe it really was all because of the supports and because of the interventions. And um, coming to grips with that was a big part of where I landed now. And I think where I landed now is I'm still fascinated by the conversation of innocence and maintaining um some semblance of that. I think it's transitioned more into a comfort with oneself. I think at that time in my life, I was wondering if I should just if there was a like a back pedal or push the brakes and go back and live life completely that way. I think the way I view it now is enjoying myself for who I am and not feeling the need to change things that are inherent and positive in me. That being said, a lot of our community tends to mask and tends to um, try to put on a face or try to fit into a box or try to pursue normalcy or be normal in some way. And I think both through the characters I've played and through my own experiences, it's been more beneficial to me to not only not have to feel that way all the time, but to really embrace the parts of me that that are inherent, whether it's spectrum or not. So, when I'm around close friends, I don't really mind if I need to take a breather or if I need to walk away or if I need to decompress. I don't mind nowadays saying, you know what, I actually don't really want to go out tonight. I think I need a decompression night in. I don't mind if I'm out, that if I leave early or, talking about the things I want to talk about or even stimming a little bit in some way or not making that eye contact if I don't need to make that eye contact. And by embracing that, I think I've found myself embracing myself and enjoying myself a lot more. And it's only benefited my acting work because I'm more in touch with that element of myself that I don't think I was as in touch with back when I first did Where Are We Now back in 2012. So it's been sort of a long journey, both through my work in the nonprofit world, my work with the autism community as a whole, my work with acting, and then my self work
Mhm.
has sort of led me to the point of basically loving myself in any form that it comes in.
I I could listen to you talk forever because you're clearly an intelligent guy, and as I said, you have a perspective that we don't hear enough of. But I wonder, Andrew, do you know how many people will watch this and go, "I would give everything if my child someday could grow up and be like Andrew." That Andrew has a life, Andrew has
Hmm.
friends, Andrew has a job, Andrew can talk articulately about his feelings, about himself and the world, and that Andrew has found a place where he loves himself. It's like, there's a lot of people who are like, wow, if, how do I get to there? I certainly, as a parent, was someone who I think I share with what every parent in the community says, which I want to do right by my child. I want to help my child to do whatever they can, understanding that everyone's different.
Hmm.
There are no two people alike. No two stories are going to end the same way. No two interventions are exactly right for any two people because everybody is different. But we're all searching for how do we show up and be the best parent for our child. So all those years ago, when here you were, like, you're kind of, I mean, forgive me, but you're like the poster of where we'd all like to get to. um like, can you own that? Do you understand what I mean by that, or is that just like you don't really need that hanging on you?
Well, no, it's you know what, it's actually because it's something I've heard a lot, especially during my time at Autism Speaks, and a big part of learning about the community. And I am extraordinarily proud of where I am and where I've gone. I know my family is very proud. My friends are proud. There is an element to it that I because it's definitely not all sunshine and rainbows on my end
Yeah.
either. There's definitely elements of anxiety that I deal with, elements of depression that I deal with, elements of social anxiety, a lot of social anxiety. That even if it doesn't appear that it's happening quite a bit. And so there are elements of it that you know are mine and my own, and I still deal with those, and those are my struggles. And like you said, every individual is dealing with something different. I've encountered, I think a lot of parents, um, this idea of wanting to help their child the most that they can, it can be interpreted in sort of a negative light. There has been in the past few years, especially, a lot of contention between parts of the autism community. A lot of
Yes.
self advocates have been standing up and saying, we need our voices heard, and this is what happened to us, and sharing their stories, which are really insightful and really important because we need those voices at the table.
Yes.
And as one myself, I'm in that camp. But then I'm also very privy to the sort of the parental side and the teacher side and the therapist side and the caregiver side as well. And their viewpoints are valid as well, because they're the ones going through it, and certain individuals do need more support or may not be able to speak for themselves in the same way. I do firmly believe that every individual on the spectrum can communicate. Doesn't have to be verbal, doesn't have to be through a speaking device. It could be physical, it could be sign language, it could just be by a look. I firmly believe that every individual can communicate basic needs and what they're feeling. That being said, once you start getting to nuances, it gets a little more complicated. And I think that's the word that can describe the situation for a lot of people. Is it's complicated. It's a very complicated situation. And because everyone's dealing with something different, you're going to get so many different answers or theories on what's best for an individual. And the only thing I could really say for that is, what works for me might work for another individual. It might. I would actually almost argue that it probably won't, because it's so broad that I think every individual and parent and caregiver needs to look at the situation, get as much exposure as you can, and then, as I am still learning, as I think it's an ongoing process, but learning to love the elements and not change them. I talked about not feeling the need to make eye contact all the time, and it's been a relief to let myself drop that if I need be, because I just found out I listen better if I'm not looking somebody in the eye, because I'm not as focused on it. And I found that generally the people I interact with, even if it seems weird at first, they generally don't mind it. And um, it's becoming a bit of a ramble, but the long
No,
story
it's
short is
brilliant. It's brilliant. Keep
the long.
rambling.
But I think a big thing that I would always push, no matter the situation, is integration, both with under other individuals on the spectrum, other parents and caregivers that are going through similar situations, and just the general population in general. I don't think individuals should limit themselves to a box or to a one-on-one situation. I think the only way to find the answers that individuals need, whether it's self-identity, whether it's help with things such as fine motor skills, whether it's finding a voice, I think the best way to do that is to surround yourself with other voices and gather as many opinions as you can, as many perspectives as you can. And that's what benefited me the most. So I would say the one thing I would recommend to anyone, um, basically on the spectrum or not, is exposure and integration.
Oh, Andrew, I would vote you for president if you were running. So keep that in mind if you ever need someone to make the coffee for your campaign. We've only got a couple of minutes left, but in case
Yes.
you don't already love Andrew, talk to us about what the Kaiser Room is and what your involvement is with them.
Yeah, so Kaisers Room is a non for profit, currently based in New York City in the tri-state area, where um, we give classes in sort of performing and dance and just fun classes for all individuals on the spectrum. Now we do have a lean towards the ASD community and cognitive disabilities in general, but we our goal is imagination and connection. And imagination and connection are two of the big things that I'm a big proponent of, because that just comes through in acting, right? Imagination is just letting yourself discover things and go wild, and there's no wrong answers. And the connection of Kaiser's Room is we bring these individuals into the room with our teaching artists, and we let them be themselves. There is no wrong answer. They will never be discouraged from what they want to pursue and what they want to do. And Kaiser's Room, at its core, is all about giving individuals that might struggle to find a space to be themselves and express themselves in an artistic way, whether it's dance or improv or whatever, to have that space and to feel connected and to feel loved and to say yes. One of the big rules of improv is always say yes.
Mhm.
It's always yes in these rooms, and those are our three big pillars: imagination, connection, and yes. So, and I'm on the I've been on the board for about 4 years now. It's always a pleasure to get to go to one of our events. We're finally we were on Zoom for a while. I think everyone, we had our struggles during the pandemic, but we're getting back into the room. We're really excited to get back to our community and just to keep pushing forward with it.
So if people want to know more about Kaisers Room, where would they go for information?
You could go to Kaisers. I'm going to check the website right now, just make sure I give the right run. Yep, kaisersroom.org. That is KAISERS room.org. And we have our mission statement. We have sizzle reels. You could look at our classes and sort of the community we work with. And no, it's just, I couldn't be more thrilled to be a part of this community. It's really a great cause.
And you can watch Andrew on Amazon right now in As We See It. Catch him as Douglas. Douglas doesn't appear until the 3rd episode, so make sure you stick with it. And by then you'll be so hooked, and you're going to want to watch to the last hour. The last hour is off the charts. It's just incredible. And Andrew, is there a place where they can go and watch you in Dig, which I found amazing, by the way?
Thank you so much. Yeah, Dig. If you could, I don't have a website on hand, but if you just YouTube Dig, and the director is John Oseneff, Seneff, it'll pop up immediately. And it's a short film. It's really a powerful little piece. It's heartbreaking. I will alert everyone that it's definitely a heartbreaking short film, but I would say it's well worth watching. It's also beautifully shot. The cinematography is kind of through the roof on that one.
And it really shows your acting chops. So after seeing this interview, go watch that and you'll go, okay, that young man can act. Just amazing. And Andrew, we want to stay in touch. I don't want it to be another 7 years before we have
It's far too long. Yeah.
It's way too long. Thank you so much. You continue to be an inspiration to all of us. Keep doing the good work that you're doing. Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on, Shannon. It's always a pleasure being here, and hopefully sooner than later.
Yes, if you come to LA, let me know.
Will do.
All right, you take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for watching Autism Live. If you found anything helpful in this video, please give us a like. In fact, make sure that you smash that subscribe button on YouTube and give us a like on Facebook. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram for important updates. And please download our free podcast wherever you get your podcasts. See you next time. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now. To subscribe, click here. And if you'd like to check out some more of our videos, click here.